to this matter. Madam Speaker, from the onset, I want to say that I sympathize and empathize with the difficulties the Kenyans are going through. It is true that this rise in fuel prices, Madam Speaker, has put a lot of burden on Kenyans, Madam Speaker, both at home and even in their workplace, Madam Speaker, and has put a strain on their pocket, Madam Speaker. So I empathize, and we must come up with a solution. For a fact, the common denominator is that we must come with a solution on this matter. But having said, Madam Speaker, what worries me, because I really, really want a solution to this problem, because that is our job, and that is why we are members of this House, Madam Speaker, because we are supposed to deal with matters of concern to the people. That's our main mandate. So, Madam Speaker, I feel that this is the right moment for us to engage on this matter soberly and in a manner that does not politicize the issue, and we don't do it in a manner that we want to score politically. Having said, Madam Speaker, what worries me now is when I see people suddenly becoming clever, Madam Speaker. You become suddenly clever that now you know everything. Madam Speaker, why do I say so that? Why do I say so? I want someone to tell me on the floor of this House, before this war of the Middle East happened, before there was a war in the Middle East between Iran and Israel and the United States, what was the situation? Because people now want to deny the fact that this is a global problem. They want to make it a Kenyan problem, Madam Speaker. Before the war happened, was there any problem in the fuel system in this country, Madam Speaker? The answer is no. What has brought this problem is after the war is when, Madam Speaker, everyone had his own time to speak on issues. Let us be given time. Madam Speaker, I was not brought this House by someone. I was brought here by my constituents. Madam Speaker.
Address the
Yeah, I'm addressing. Those interruptions. Madam Speaker, I am saying before the war happened, there was no problem with the fuel. Now it's a fact that it is the global problem that has affected this country. Number two, Madam Speaker, there's these sweeping statements people make. Oh, Uganda is cheaper in fuel. Oh, Tanzania is cheaper in fuel. That's a very tired narrative in this country that we should stop using. Why do I say so? How do I qualify that? Madam Speaker, our economies are different. The amount of debt that this country has is not the same as the debt Uganda has. It's not the same the debt Tanzania has. And some of the people who have put this debt to this country are the ones speaking here. They are once the chairs of committees, of budget committee. I asked them on this floor, and it's on record. It's on record. I asked them on this floor, why are you allowing the government to borrow more then? They told me, my friend, look at Japan. They have borrowed 100% of their GDP. Look at America. They have borrowed 200% of their GDP. Look at Singapore. They have borrowed. I was that time still in the minority. Today, they are not talking about that. Now they are saying, you must reduce your taxes. How do you reduce your tax when you have committed to this country 10 trillion shillings by the time you are leaving office? Madam Speaker, let's call a spade a spade. Why we are paying more taxes as a country is because we have more debts than Uganda, we have more debts than Tanzania. If we reduce our debts, give us a formula of how to reduce our debts, our taxes will come down. Secondly, Madam Speaker, you are saying that I want this fuel levy removed from that in form of taxes, I want VAT removed. Very good. Those are sweeping statements. You want me to reduce, Madam Speaker, I've not even spoken. The issue is, tell me where I am a leader. I am not any other member from Guasi or somewhere.
Do not, you are actually wasting your time.
Madam Speaker, I am saying, you are telling me to remove fuel levy by 7 shillings, VAT by 8 shillings, by 8%. Madam, you are not telling me where I'm going to raise that revenue from. You are just saying there is largesse in government. No, as a good economist, the way you are trying to portray yourself, you should tell me, remove these taxes, and this is where you will raise the revenue from. In specific places. I want to go to the issue of G2G, Madam Speaker. Can this House be told what was the situation in this country before G2G came? We were queuing for fuel in petrol stations, Madam Speaker. You remember? We were walking with jerrycans in our vehicles, Madam Speaker. There was no fuel in any station in this country. When President Uhuru Kenyatta was leaving office, there was no fuel in any petrol station, Madam Speaker.
Honorable members, I had guided when we started the debate that this is under Standing Order 33. It is limited to 5 minutes, but allow me to use my discretion to give 5 more minutes to Honorable Junet and 10 minutes to the majority leader.
Madam Speaker, thank you
But
very
the
much.
rest of you, 5 minutes.
Thank you,
Honorable
Madam
members.
Speaker. Thank you very much for your indulgence. Madam Speaker, what was the situation when G2G was brought to this country? There was no fuel in this country. Prices were high, Madam Speaker. The dollar was at 160 something, Madam Speaker. There are 180 oil marketing companies in this country. All those 100 and something oil marketing companies were buying dollars at the same time to buy fuel, Madam Speaker, fuel supplies. What was happening? There was scramble for dollar in this country. And now the dollar strengthened and the Kenyan shilling was losing, Madam Speaker. Let us appreciate the gains we have made from G2G, Madam Speaker. You can call it G2C, G2D, G2Y, whatever you want. The fact of the matter, I am not here to defend Gulf Oil Company, Madam Speaker. But when you go do research on Gulf Oil Company, Madam Speaker, the fact remains that Gulf Oil Company has been in the oil business for the last 20 years, Madam Speaker. It was not registered because of the G2G. Gulf Oil Company was operating as an oil company in this country in 2009, 2008, 2009, 10. They were the ones even who were winning the OTC even that time. The open tender system, the people who, one of the companies that used to win and supply fuel the whole country was Gulf Oil Company. All that is in record, Madam Speaker. We cannot deny facts, Madam Speaker. You may have problem with the owner. You may want to extort something from him. You want money from him. That is a different matter, Madam Speaker. But the fact that will remain is that Gulf Oil Company has been an oil marketer in this country for the last 20 years. It has been there during Kibaki's time. It has been there during Uhuru's time. And it will be there during Ruto's time. And it will be there when I become president, God willing, which I'm foreseeing in the near future. Madam Speaker, I want to say this. Let us not politicize things just because we want to incite Kenyans. It is true Kenyans are suffering. I acknowledge that we have to do something to alleviate that suffering from Kenyans. But let's do it in a honest manner. Let's not do it in a way that you think you can score politically. You want to portray the broad-based government in black because you think you can win an election. This could be a temporary issue. I don't know what you're going to say in 2 months' time when this war ends and prices come down. If you are telling me it is because of the premium, the way some prophets here are talking about it, why was it cheaper than before the war? It is what the majority leader is saying. What has gone up is freight, Madam Speaker. That is what is making the oil expensive today, because insurances, freight have gone up because of the war. Somebody is telling me that the oil of Kenya does not pass through the port of the Strait of Hormuz. When have you become an escort of a ship coming to Kenya? That you know now it doesn't pass Hormuz, it passes Hormuz, it passes I don't know which country. My friends, the fact of the matter is we are not an oil producing company. Neither even do we have a refinery like Nigeria. We buy from international market. And even today, people who don't watch international news also, who don't watch what is happening globally, have a problem. Even there is a problem of fuel in the United States of America that is producing fuel. Let us not lie to Kenyans. Let us not incite them. Let us come with a solution that can help them. Madam Speaker, one of the solutions I want to propose, I don't want to be, general like my colleagues. This transport industry that has been affected heavily by the fuel prices, Madam Speaker, majority of them have loans that they pay. They have borrowed from banks. Just like the COVID time, we need to speak to the financial, companies, the banks, to freeze their interest for the time being, to freeze their loans, so that there's nothing to declare here. I'm not a conman like you, Bana. You are Bana, keep quiet, Bana. I don't want to engage you.
Honorable Junet, focus.
Madam Speaker, it is high time we allow the matatus. And I have come to realize Kenyans need to diversify even in these matatu things. Because there are people who have used it politically of late, I can see. We allow the matatu industry to be, the financial companies, the banks, to allow the matatu industries to give them moratorium in terms of payments of their interest and loans. Madam Speaker, if we are truly leaders, as we call ourselves, Let us not come here to posture politically. Let us give solutions that can advance the country, that can make our country better, that can make our country look good. Madam Speaker, it's not, I don't benefit in any way by paying higher prices for fuel. It doesn't pay, it doesn't, I'm actually in the transport.
You've made your point, Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, allow me to support this motion. And Honorable Speaker, as I begin, as I said earlier, this is a time that calls for leadership. The easiest thing for us to do as politicians is political posturing, saying and speaking to the gallery, saying all manner of pleasantries that we think will excite our supporters, and that which sounds good to the people, but may not be true. And I say that, Honorable Speaker, because when we make proposals here, as members of parliament, we must not make proposals that simply speaks to the gallery. And that is what I see with some of our colleagues, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this is the house that is charged with the responsibility of making budgets. And we all know, including those of us like myself, who have had the privilege to serve as chairman of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, and I speak this from a point of authority, Speaker, because I served for 2 years, almost 2 years, before I was fired, as the chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee. Honorable Speaker, you remember then the Honorable Junet saying that even as we fire Honorable Ishongwa, he was the best chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee. And my record still speaks for itself, Honorable Speaker. And never a time when I served as chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, after I was removed, unfairly so, Honorable Speaker, there is not a single moment I stood on the floor of this House to speak against matters that I had prosecuted as a chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee. Never. And I will never do that, because I make conscious decisions as a leader. I don't make decisions to excite and please people out there to praise you as the greatest of all times. You may think you are the greatest of all times as you move around with lecture notes, only to come and realize it ends up in premium tiers when the people discover you are lying to them. Because when you tell us that we can reduce VAT, we can do away with VAT, you know, as a member of this House, that whatever you give, something else must give in. It will translate either to reduced capitation for our secondary school and primary school students. It will translate to either lower funding for our university students. It will translate to lower budgetary allocations for our healthcare workers and our healthcare system. It will translate to a slowdown of our economy, Honorable Speaker. Therefore, even as we make proposals, Honorable Speaker, I want to identify myself with some of the proposals that have been made by the Honorable Junet, that it is possible, and I liked what the governor for Nairobi said in the press conference last week, that it is possible to plead, because these are not normal times. During the COVID pandemic, our financial services sector came up and rose to the occasion and extended moratoriums on loans to people who are affected by the COVID pandemic. This is such a time. There is no other sector in this country that is making more money in terms of profits than the financial services sector, and I'm speaking to banks and the bank owners. If you are able to extend moratoriums on interest and penalties for late payment of loans to those in the hospitality sector who are confronted with the pandemic in 2019-2020, it is possible today for our banking sector to extend the same moratorium to our transport sector players. And I'm not talking about matatus alone and buses. I'm talking about truck owners and truck drivers who transport goods, including the food we eat in Nairobi and other urban areas from our rural areas. They need a reprieve. Many of these people, we must empathize with them because they have taken up loans to buy the assets that they are using, and we must ask and urge the financial services sector, our banks, to extend a moratorium on interest like they did during the COVID pandemic, because this is wartime. And wartime economies cannot operate the same way as peacetime economies operate. I've had a member here pretend, oh, global oil prices per barrel were lower in 2022 than they are today. True. But be honest as a leader. Tell the people that what you tell them, that Saudi oil never goes through the Strait of Hormuz, is a plain lie. In Saudi, to the east, take their oil, most of them, almost 80 to 90% of the oil fields in Saudi take their crude oil through the Strait of Hormuz. Number two, be honest. Tell the Kenyan people, it is true, cost per barrel in 2022 was lower, but what is affecting us as a country is that we do not have an oil refinery. We killed Changamwe Oil Refinery in the earlier years, before this administration, in the Kibaki days. But today, Honorable Speaker, we import not crude oil. So if crude oil per barrel is cheaper, ask yourself, where do you refine your oil? If you are refining your oil, for instance, in Bahrain, the oil refinery in Bahrain was bombed. What does that do to the cost of the refined fuel that we import, because we import refined fuel into this country? Therefore, Honorable Speaker, what should this motion be doing? This motion is not an opportunity for people to come and posture here, wannabe opposition leaders, like those who are attempting to interrupt me now. Honorable Speaker, they have not temerity to listen to the truth, because the truth stands firm, Honorable
Order,
Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Honorable Speaker, there is nothing that I've said that is out of order.
Honorable Karoli,
Yes,
what
Honorable
is out
Speaker,
of order?
I don't think the Honorable Member is not in order to mislead not just the House, but the nation.
What is out of order?
His explanation that the closure of the Kenya petroleum refineries has led to increase in the cost of fuel in Kenya. It is the opposite. Kenya, when we had the KPRL, was importing 70% white
Honorable
oil.
Karoli.
So it is
Honorable,
wrong.
order,
It is wrong.
order.
What is trying,
I am trying to also listen to you. I had you debate and you gave your point of view. Allow the honorable member to also debate. Unless something is totally out of order.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker,
Honorable
for the protection,
Majority
because
Leader.
the member is on debate and he had his time. If he can just have the temerity and the patience to listen to me, educate him a bit, just a bit. I may not have the ability to educate him on everything. But Honorable Speaker, I was talking about the price of crude oil. We do not import crude oil into this country. We import refined product or processed product, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, if we have seen refineries being bombed, what does that tell you in simple economics, in the law of demand and supply, Honorable Speaker? We have been told, Honorable Speaker, oh, the price of oil in Ethiopia is much lower. I must thank Citizen TV and the journalist called Alex Chamwada. They did a very good piece showing us as the people of Kenya how fortunate we are that we entered into the G2G arrangement that ensures today we are not short of supply. Honorable Speaker, if we wanted to be populist, it is very easy. Cut down the supply of diesel, for instance. If you are consuming 2 million liters of diesel in a day, cut it by half. Use what we have been told as a fuel subsidy. You have so many billions of subsidy. Use that money to subsidize a lower supply of fuel. And that is what many people are doing today. That is why you will see queues and queues, long queues of vehicles.
What is out of
because
order?
they are chasing a smaller amount of product.
Honorable Nyoro, what is out of order?
My point of order, Honorable Speaker, is on the honesty that we need to debate, to have in this debate. That you are very quick to give examples of Ethiopia and Burundi when it's convenient. Why can't we use the examples that are there of a country like Uganda,
Member
which
for
transports
Keharu.
fuel through Kenya?
Order. Member for Keharu, I had Honorable Karoli give examples and there are points of debates. Allow members to give examples as they deem fit to fit their
Honorable
submission.
Speaker, thank you again, Honorable Speaker. I told you these people have no patience because the truth at times becomes very bitter and painful. But let me take you to Uganda, Honorable Speaker, because that is the point I was on. It is possible for us, if you wanted to be populist today, to cut down the supply of diesel, for instance, use the resources, because you subsidize fuel per liter. Therefore, if you are subsidizing, say, 2 million liters of diesel being consumed every day, just cut supply by half to 50%, then do what they are doing in some countries. Make the fuel very cheap, but unavailable. What does that do to our economy? Those are the questions we need to be asking ourselves as leaders. Because I can stand here, Honorable Speaker, and pontificate all manner of goodies and sweet nothings, but they will not help this economy. What we need to look at is how do we chew gum and scale the stairs at the same time, Honorable Speaker. And we must not look at this thing from a short-term perspective, Honorable Speaker. We must look at it in the short term, medium term, and long term. And long term, Honorable Speaker, is what government has done through the National Infrastructure Fund. We must begin devoting resources to ensure that we have adequate resources to generate power and transmit that power. So that what? So that we are able to move to e-mobility, the electric vehicles that we are talking about here. Because we move to e-mobility today, as Honorable KJ is telling me, but do we have the power to be able to charge these cars? That is why the National Infrastructure Fund, and I must thank President William Ruto. As much as all these people we shout at him, he has remained true to the cause and focused on what needs to be done to transform this country. And he has done that amidst all this noise and shouting and insults. But with the National Infrastructure Fund, we can develop adequate power to be able to have resources, power resources to charge our electric mobility sector. We must also look at long-term solutions on supply optionality. We have seen that war in one area can completely disrupt our economies. Therefore, we must have supply optionality to look at ways where we can get supplies, whether it's from West Africa or from other areas and other far-flung corners like the US also. But I also agree with Honorable Junet. I was speaking to my nephew last night, and he was telling me now fuel in the US is more expensive than in Kenya, despite them being an oil-producing country. And I don't want to mention Venezuela and what they did in Venezuela, because they are a friendly nation. And I know many Kenyans will tell you, don't compare us with America. Don't compare us with the developed world. They have more disposable income. That is why, as responsible leaders, we must protect your disposable income from further degradation if we allow your economy to go down, while we to follow some of these populist things you are being told here. Because if you do not have money on VAT for school capitation, that will mean parents will have to pay for school fees, higher school fees. That further eats to their disposable income, Honorable Speaker. As a nation, Honorable Speaker, and I'm saying this looking at the long term and the medium term, it is inexcusable and indefensible that over the last few decades, we have allowed our country to operate without strategic oil reserves. It's inexcusable, understandable, but indefensible. In the future, we must make sure that the government of Kenya devotes resources to make sure that we have strategic national reserves for oil. If we had strategic oil reserves in this country today, we would be using the oil that was purchased when it was cheaper now to balance out with what we are getting and have moderate prices. These are solutions from leaders. I spoke about diversified sourcing, Honorable Speaker. We must diversify our sourcing of fuel. The Strait of Hormuz, Honorable Speaker, I've heard someone say, oh, all the oil does not pass through the oil of Hormuz. Where the refineries are, you must go through the Strait of Hormuz. Fact of life. But anybody being dishonest and populist will not want people to know that. I dare say the unpopular, but the right thing. I dare propose to this House.
Let me add you 1 minute. Conclude.
I was saying, Honorable Speaker, I dare say to this House that as leaders, we are dealing with wartime style of logistics around the world in the global supply chain. We cannot compare peacetime supply chain to wartime supply chain. We must be innovative. Locally, Honorable Speaker, I want to call on our financial services sector, our banks. Let us be sensitive. Let us empathize, not with the person you see as a matatu owner, but with the passenger in that matatu. Not the person you see as a farmer of maize, but the consumer of maize flour who buys that maize flour from a kiosk or from a supermarket. So that the moratorium that we extend to our matatu and transport sector owners, whether it is transporters like Honorable Junet, that Honorable Junet will be able, with his trucks, to extend the moratorium he gets from a bank to the consumer by not unreasonably increasing the transportation costs once your financing costs are rationalized. And I want to ask that part of what we should be doing today as a House and as leaders, not as politicians, is working on means and ways on how we'll help our banking sector, first, to extend those sort of moratoriums that they did during the COVID pandemic to the hospitality industry. Let us see the same. And I hope the Kenya Bankers Association, because I have seen them appear before the Finance Committee, will be speaking to some of these issues. And I want to plead with them from the floor of this House. Please, it is okay, and I say this because I'm a shareholder to one of the banks. I am willing to take no dividends from the banks that I hold shares.
Honorable member for Kikuyu, I am told by the minority whip that your girls from Alliance are waiting for you back here. So I'll wind up, please.
I was winding up, I was saying, as a shareholder to banks, Honorable Speaker, I am willing to take a lower dividend or no dividend at all to help us navigate through this wartime season. Honorable Speaker, finally, let me plead with the Prime Minister of the State of Israel, with the President of the United States of America, the most powerful nation in the world, and the Iranian state, to put the lives of the people of the world ahead of all other considerations. I pray for peace. I pray for the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz as much as I pray for our local politicians to see beyond this season, to see to it that life or the lives of Kenyans is more important than their political posturing, Honorable Speaker.
Very well.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I pray, Honorable Speaker, that as we move to the finance bill, we will see the bank owners and the Kenya Bankers Association bring in proposals on how we can help them to be able to extend some of these moratoriums to the people. And in closing, Honorable Speaker, to the government and the people of Kenya, the leaders of the people of Kenya. Through the National Infrastructure Fund, let us start thinking about alternative public transportation. Let us start thinking about not just e-mobility, light rail, trams, because a railway line or a rail infrastructure will take in more passengers cheaper.
Your time is
and
up.
The rail, Honorable Speaker.
Your time is up.